Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shack Allen Mercadante Studios. Appreciate everybody for clicking on or for listening on the many platforms we have or watching on Facebook Live or YouTube. We appreciate all of our great sponsors. We'll get to all of our fun stuff to do today. We'll be joined a little bit later by Adam Rittenberg from ESPN, their national college football writer. Can't wait to talk to him about a lot of stuff going on in college football. And I was wondering today, should I lead with football or basketball? Because, yes, basketball, but here's the thing. Football still drives the engine. Bad football drives the engine at Florida. In most schools in the Southeast, the only one that would be different would be Kentucky. You know, even people complaining about how bad they are still drives the engine, so I'm going to still lead with football. But it was amazing to see two games on consecutive days involving the Gators, football and basketball, where the scores were 70-52 and 71-55, almost identical scores, and yet the 71-55 game, people are freaking out about how happy they are, and the 70-52 game, people are so mad they want to kill. You know, Dan Mullen had his press conference today, and you know, not a whole lot revealing there. There was a couple things interesting he said about the game, and of course, there's a lot of talk about the celebration after the game, and I've talked to a bunch of people about it. I had no problem with them celebrating. There are a couple of players that were celebrating that maybe had a problem with celebrating. If you're not willing to make tackles, you know, that's a big problem. But I had no problem with it, and I know that a lot of people do. And they go, oh, the Gator standard and all this stuff. Yeah, this team hadn't won a game in 5 weeks. You know, they needed to go ahead and feel good about themselves and celebrate a little bit. I know it was almost borderline embarrassing. It was embarrassing. And I will tell you, at 42-28, I'm watching the game, and obviously I'm keeping notes because I'm keep track of every play because of stuff I do for Gators Wire and also for WRUF. I do the grades. So and you want to put good nuggets in there, so I keep track of everything. And I'm watching the game, and it's 42-28, and I'm literally felt sick to my stomach. And this is before I got sick yesterday. I actually was sick yesterday. I just felt sick, like I cannot believe what's going on. And I talked to my wife about it, and she said she felt the same way because she was out shopping and stuff, buying my birthday presents, I'm sure. But there were people that were angry, but it was almost like I think a lot of people, and I think these are people that are I don't want to say it that way. What way do I want to say it? I think these are pretty smart people. They felt sick about what has happened to their program at 42-28. They felt sick to their stomachs. I think people were almost done being angry. I think a majority of fans done being angry. And they just were sick to their stomachs that their team couldn't even be competitive in a game like this. And the good thing is, this team, as they've done many times this year, rallied. Don't forget, you know, they rallied against LSU. They were rallying against Kentucky, got down to the red zone with a chance to tie the game. Rallied against Alabama with a chance to tie the game. I mean, they haven't just given up except that South Carolina game. And that's still embarrassing to the program. And so it felt like, I think, in that 42-28 window that Florida had again given up. And they weren't going to put the effort in. They weren't willing to do it. And they rallied, and they did what they needed to do, and they got the win. So I have no problem with them celebrating it. Florida's probably not too smart to let that video get out there, you know. I mean, it would have been better to keep it in-house. And I know why people are upset. I know why fans are upset. Some are upset. Some are like, hey, it was a win. If nothing else, and Mullen did talk about this today, if nothing else, at least this team feels good about itself or better about itself. All they've been told is how they suck. That's all they've been told by everybody. And they have. They have sucked royally. Well, from that point on, though, from 42-28, they outscore Samford. I can't even believe I'm saying this. They outscored Samford 42-10. And they did play better defense, but that's not even the point. And I told you guys this. Samford had a good offense and a bad defense. And, boy, they lived up to it. They were really good on offense. They just ran that air raid, a lot of bubble screens and slants. Again, Florida didn't adjust. They had a guy calling his first game defensively, and you could tell he was overmatched. Not good for your resume to give up the most points in the history of Florida football in a half. Not good for your resume. And right away, I said, how many did Nebraska score? Oh, yeah, they didn't get 42 in a half. And that was embarrassing. The tackling is just abysmal on this team. And that, to me, comes down to effort. It's not just homework and angles and what you did in the weight room. It comes down to effort. Do I want to stick my shoulder? I mean, there were times, I don't know if you guys saw this play in the NFL Sunday, when there was somebody, I don't even remember who it was, for the Eagles, picked up a fumble and ran it back, and as he's getting to the 15-yard line, Teddy Bridgewater's got a chance to tackle him, and he goes, I ain't getting involved in this. You can have the touchdown. It's not my fault. And that feels like what Florida's defenders are doing sometimes. Like, I don't want to stick my shoulder in there. I'll push you. Hopefully you'll fall down. You'll weeble and wobble and fall down. I figured this out since before the LSU game, which is when all this went bad. And you think about this, I know that it was brought up last week or Friday, about maybe it is the jinx, like the billy goat for the Cubs, of the shoe thrown. Since that shoe was thrown, in counting that game, in these 13 games where Florida's 5-8, they've given up 32.1 points per game, 32 points a game. That is not winning football, as we know. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. So, at the same time, Emory Jones picks a weird day to have the greatest day in the history of Florida football. I mean, if you want to look at it statistically, he had a better day than Tim Tebow ever did, because he broke Tebow's record for the most total yards in a game. Emory was great. That's what Emory can be if you don't pressure him. If you let him stand back there, get in the pocket, and throw, he's pretty sharp. He's good. When you don't, when you pressure him, we've seen it all year, struggles sometimes, has a lot of turnovers, but he did a much better job. In fact, his one turnover came back because of an interference penalty. And that was where I was like, it's a game that will live forever. Everybody will remember the 70-52 game. And now we sit here and we wonder about what's going to happen with Dan Mullen. These last two games, I'm not optimistic about either one of them. I mean, Missouri, and we'll talk more about Missouri on Friday's show, but Missouri has a guy who's had 4 200-yard rushing games. What can Florida not do? Stop the run. It's not a good sign going into that game. And then, of course, FSU's playing better. They came back and rallied and beat Miami. And I missed most of the end of the game because I was busy with, I think it was on the Zoom call. But so I'm not picking Florida. And Florida's a 7.5-point favorite. It's actually moved down. I think it's 7.5 right now over Missouri, which and that tells you that Missouri hasn't been very good. So, and they haven't. I know they beat South Carolina, and I think they beat them by 3 over the weekend. I didn't watch a whole lot of that game. I thought I would watch more than I did. But so I don't feel good about it, and I don't know that it's not You lose both of them, you're out. I don't know what the solutions are to Florida's problems. I really don't. I don't have an answer there. I wish I did. Maybe we'll get one from Adam. Also, the Missouri game, of course, is at 4 o'clock. This is something I don't know how many people know this, and it's not a big secret, but the runway in Columbia is closed, so they can't fly into Columbia, which means they have to fly to St. Louis. St. Louis is 2 hours away. It is the worst drive in America, and I've done it so many times. I don't know how many times we've been up there. It's not a pleasant trip. But, hey, these guys go 2 hours to Tallahassee on a bus, 2 hours to Jacksonville on a bus, out to Sawgrass. So there's no excuses, but this team seems to sometimes look for excuses. Anyway, a team that did not look for excuses. By the way, the FSU game is at noon, if you haven't heard, which is brutal for senior day. And there are seniors on this team that deserve to be applauded for their efforts of their careers. Guys like Ventrell Miller and Zach Carter and guys like, and I feel bad when you get a noon senior day because people just aren't going to be there. They're not going to be there for your senior day. A team that did not let the flu bother them was the Florida basketball team. What a gritty effort by that team. I think most Gator fans, although there's always a few that are unhappy with the win, we're really proud of this team and proud of Mike White and proud of the way Colin Castleton just played like a beast. DeRougie was great. They played the 5 starters most of the game because they just kind of had to stick with them. But even one of them, Tyree Appleby, who had a really good game because he only had 1 turnover and he was pressured on every time. He just bringing the ball in. Had to go and throw up during the game and go to the run to the bathroom and vomit. So that's how sick these guys were. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't let it bother them. They overcame it. That's what you do when you have adversity. When you're facing adversity, you either overcome it or you give into it. So there's some lessons that they could give. Now, I will say this. Florida's basketball team had an inspiration in Keontae Johnson. We all know what happened a year ago. Almost, I think it's coming. Well, it's less than less than a year ago. With him collapsing on the floor in Tallahassee. I think this was a big game for them. He got the game ball. If you've seen the video on that, nobody has a problem with that. Everybody's celebrating a win. Well, almost the same score. Of course, it was FSU, which was ranked. Florida is now ranked 24th in the country. In fact, my daughter was so – and I will say this. I could tell by what little I had the sound on for because I don't like to watch sound Florida games. I always feel like you guys don't know what you're talking about. And when Jimmy Dykes doing it, I'm definitely not watching it. So, but when I turned the sound up, it was really loud in there. And then I talked to people. And then I talked to my daughter, who's a member of the Rowdies. And she talked about it was one of the most fun days of her life. And just how into it the players were and how into it the Rowdies were. And good job by them. So they got it done. Basketball got it done. That's great. A great win. It's one game. And Mike White said this to his team and to the media after the game. Unfortunately, when I got on the Zoom call for that, and my dog got involved in it, but it was a long story. He was crying to go out, and I told him to get out, and I didn't realize I wasn't muted. So I got to get a new dog. So Archie was on the Colin Castleton Zoom call. So anyway, we'll get another Zoom call coming in just a bit after we take a break. We are on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. You know it well, presented by Titan MRI from the Shackout Mercandani Studios. We'll take a break. We'll come back. And, of course, we got a lot of things to do, as we always do on Mondays. But we're going to talk to Adam Rittenberg from ESPN. I want to get his take on all the firings that are gone. Another coach got fired this weekend. That's one thing I definitely want to talk about, and the college football playoff. And what an outsider, somebody who's not in the trenches, although I'm not in the trenches. I don't even go to media days anymore. Thinks about what's going on with the Florida Gators. We'll be right back with more on Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shackout and Mercandani Studios.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Hey, this is Pat Dooley for the Gainesville Quarterback Club, and they are having a trial membership here at the end of the season. It's really a great deal. We've talked about them doing it at the beginning of the season, and what they're doing is they're offering the next 3 meetings for $100. And believe me, you get a full meal out of this, too. Every one of these meetings. Great speakers. The meeting dates for this are November 9th, 16th, and 23rd as we wrap up this college football season. Anyone interested in taking advantage of this trial membership can RSVP the membership leader at bob.bagley@pauldavis.com. Or you can just pay at the door.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call-ahead carry-out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted Podcast, or Duly Poted, not cast. It could be that too. Presented by Titan MRI from the Shakow Mercadante Studios. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and we'll get to a lot of the fun stuff we like to do, including the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack, our rankings of the 12 teams we would put in the playoffs if there was a 12-team playoff. There's not yet. We will hopefully get to that at some point. Right now, maybe we'll find out from one of the smartest guys I know, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN, does a great job writing about college football. And really, you need to read him all the time. Adam, how are you on this beautiful, I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's a beautiful day here in lovely Gainesville.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. We have snow falling in Chicago, so it's a lot nicer there than it is here, which you can expect this time of year. But yeah, great to be on with you, and happy to talk college football.
Yeah, it's. I'm just curious what somebody who's, like you said, in Chicago, but college football and you talk to a lot of people, and how you look at what has happened over the last 11 months with Florida, where I think they were 6th in the college football rankings before the LSU game, and how it's now they're 5-8 since then. It's unbelievable how the collapse has been so sudden.
It really has. And, again, played well in the SEC championship game. Now, what, happened after that with a number of players leaving was not surprising, and neither was really their bowl loss. But certainly this year, I thought this would be, at worst, a, kind of fringe top 25 program. And, they push Alabama as well as they did early on. But really, since that LSU game, it's gone downhill sharply, especially on the defensive side. And maybe those of us who are more interested in the quarterback shuffling of who is going to play and how Dan Mullen was going to use his quarterbacks, we're not focused enough on their issues on the defensive side, because Dan really did inherit a pretty talented team defensively, and they'd been good on that side of the ball, but started to fade a little bit last year and continue to kind of fade this year. And so you have a coach in there who's known for developing talent. But is that enough at a place like Florida, which has always been able to recruit at a high level and, kind of win that way? Is this type of coach the right fit now at this point, or can he fix this is maybe the better question going forward? Because you're right, it's been sudden, but, maybe those who kind of have seen the talent change at least on the defensive side of the ball, maybe not as surprised by what's happened.
Yeah, well, that's always a question that I get asked, and I don't know the answer to is, like, they need to recruit better. They can't always rely just on the transfer portal. But can a leopard change his spots and become a good recruiter? Somebody who's been an, okay recruiter his whole career. Can he kind of grasp that and go out and be that? I don't know the answer to that question.
Right. No, I don't either. And the two things about Dan Mullen that, have been swirling that aren't really secrets are that he doesn't love the recruit and is more of a guy that will take whatever you give him and improve it, which he did really throughout his career at Mississippi State and even early on at some points at Florida. The other thing that I'm sure you've heard is that, Dan really is interested in the NFL. And is that something that would ever present itself to a point where, he might face that decision? You probably not after this year, but that's tough. When you have those two things that are swirling around you and you're trying to compete with Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher and some of the other coaches in the conference. That's a challenging thing to kind of deal with. But if they can finish the season, well, which is hard to imagine right now, given how they played against Samford, maybe there's still a chance to reshape that staff and get things turned around. But in some ways, I think for Florida to win in the immediate, Dan's going to have to do what he does best, which is develop, because they don't necessarily have the parts and pieces that you want to compete with in Alabama and compete with Georgia in the division.
You know what I like? I kind of like him because Kirby smells blood, right? And he is right after that game when he said, "Hey, you can't outcoach players. We're going to continue to recruit at a high level. Who the better coach is doesn't really matter. We're going to still be better." And basically just kind of shoved it right in Dan Mullen's face. But so he smells blood. But it kind of reminds me of Urban Meyer when he was at Florida, when he was doing that recruiting, and FSU was on the decline. And Bobby Bowden was on his way out. And everybody kept talking about he's going to leave. He's too old. And Florida took advantage of that. And Urban Meyer took advantage of that and just pummeled them in recruiting.
No, that's a great point. And, in a sense, one of the, I would say, layers of frustration for Florida fans right now is that it's not like there's a dominant program in the state that you're so concerned about. It's beating you in recruiting. I mean, certainly Georgia goes in there, Alabama goes in there, a lot of teams go into Florida, but it's not as though Florida State. I mean, they're digging out of a potentially 10-year hole in terms of what flipping their roster around. Miami has been wildly inconsistent, even though they've recruited at a decent level. I mean, the other programs are what they are. UCF and Gus Malzahn will soon be in the Power Five, but they're not there yet. So you would think this would be an opportunity for Florida to accelerate on the recruiting trail and get even better in that realm, and they haven't at this point taken advantage of it.
Adam, how much do you think that the kind of the collateral damage of the early signing period is that coaches are getting fired earlier? We've seen so many assistant coaches fired, including 2 here, but head coaches, I think it's broken the record for most fired during the season. I think 9 or something like that, including Jimmy Lake just over the weekend. Do you think that that's a big factor in it?
It's definitely a factor. I think what's just a factor now more than anything, Pat, is that when teams or when schools know they need to make a change, they will make the change. There's no more, well, let's see how the guy does, and maybe if he beats his rival, we'll hang on to him. It's like if they have an inkling that this isn't working out, they are not going to hesitate, in part because you've seen 3 coaches already get hired for places that have been fired this year, including obviously Joey McGuire at a Power 5 at Texas Tech. So it's I think you're going to see more of this, but you also had a number of unusual circumstances. Both Washington schools were not expected to have vacancies. You had Nick Rolovich's vaccine situation where he ultimately didn't comply with the state mandate and got fired at Washington State. And then you had this very unusual situation with Jimmy Lake. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I would have said there's no chance Jimmy Lake is getting fired. And then they lose to Oregon. He has the incident on the sideline. Apparently, there had been other things that they were concerned about. Still, you just fired a coach after 13 games as a guy who'd been at Washington for several years. So not a place that was expecting to do a search at Washington is now doing one. And then Gary Patterson, I put him in the surprising category to a degree as well. But they're a place, and they've been pretty transparent that they want to do this early. They didn't want this hanging over the program down the stretch, and they would like to get someone in there to help recruiting as soon as possible.
Yeah, I still am not a big fan of firing assistant coaches during the season because, I mean, we saw with Florida. I mean, what that defense, I don't care how bad they were before, to give up 42 and a half when your DC was fired during the week is not good. But let's talk about something fun, which would be the college football playoff. And I don't know how you feel about it, where we are. I know that I've seen several people write columns saying, let's get off the pot, man. I mean, are we going to go to 12 or 8? Let's just do it. Somebody come up with an answer here.
Yeah, no, I think we'll have an answer hopefully soon. It does seem like the people that were a little more hesitant about 12 have become more open to that as a reality. I think the way that the 12-team proposal came about in some ways, Pat, was more of a problem than the proposal itself. And I think people need to get over that. I personally think you can get a lot accomplished with 8, but I know I'm in the minority on that, even though none of us were thinking about 12 until Greg Sankey and the others said this is our proposal. And I think there still are some points in there that the other leagues might want to go back at and ensure that they're not going to be left out, or that I honestly my biggest concern with 12 is that 2 leagues are going to probably dominate the field. Yeah, sure, the group of 5 will be part of it, but you're going to have potentially 4 or 5 SEC teams, or in a year like this, the Big Ten would probably have at least 3, if not more teams in the field of 12. So do you want 7 Big Ten or SEC teams and then 5 of everybody else? Does that really solve our problems, which is a very limited playoff, a playoff that's not very national? I don't know. I think that's what I'm more concerned about. This is somebody who cares about having this playoff represent the country and not just represent the Big Ten, Notre Dame, and the Southeast, which has pretty much been in Oklahoma. That's pretty much been it throughout the existence since 2014.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned Oklahoma, because I was telling people I had Oklahoma number 2 on my poll.
Oh, Pat, we got a lot to talk about.
Boy, I was way off on that, wasn't I? I mean, that was bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you on Twitter. I've been probably a little bit too unhinged about Oklahoma all year because I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, and even before they made the quarterback switch from Rattler to Caleb Williams, I saw a team that was just in too many games it shouldn't have been in it. They'd upgraded their talent level. Their defense was supposedly better. I know they'd had some issues on the offensive line, but to be going down to the wire with Nebraska and Tulane and West Virginia, and then having to make this furious comeback to beat a Texas team that's now 4-6. It's not a good team. I mean, it's not a great team. It's not a playoff team, and that was pretty clear to me early on. And so, I mean, Baylor kind of made it pretty clear that they're not.
Yeah.
And I think this is an interesting time for Lincoln Riley because he's obviously built up a very, very good program, but they have clear steps to take. especially as they get ready to transition to the SEC if they want to win a national title. I mean, as good as Oklahoma has been, Pat, they haven't won a national title since 2000. It's a long time ago. It's a full
remember very
generation.
well.
It's
Wasn't
a full
that score like
generation
13-2 or something?
Right. Yeah, it was a Tommy Harris and company.
Yeah.
But it's a full generation of players that have not experienced a national title at Oklahoma. So and it's hard to tell. Are they closer than they were 2 years ago when LSU blew them out in the semifinal? Are they about the same? Are they farther away? I think those are all questions that need to be asked around that program.
Yeah, another question that obviously is going to need to be asked is there a second great team? You mentioned Oklahoma's not a great team. I know one great team, and I've seen them, obviously, up there just north of us, 5.5 hours. But is there a second one that you even feel can compete with them? Because their defense is so good that Kirby's like, we'll go for it. You're not going to score anyway. We'll throw it on 4th and 5 over the top because you're not going to score on us anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I think it's freed him up to be a better coach.
Yeah, no doubt. That was always the criticism that he coached maybe too conservatively at times, and then when he would take chances, it seemed to backfire on him. And they are a great team. I am curious. I thought Tennessee's offense would really be one that could provide a test for Georgia, just because they can score so quickly, and they have a quarterback who's playing at a much higher level under Josh Heupel and Hendon Hooker. Now you look at Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State probably has the best offense in the country when things are rolling there. They have multiple receivers who are big play threats. They have great tight end play. They have a freshman running back in Travion Henderson, who's their best freshman running back since Maurice Clarett, who won a national title back in 2002. And they're very good on the offensive line. At times they've been a little spotty there. So I just love to see Ohio State's offense against Georgia's defense. But that might not be enough. And we've seen Ohio State, they only beat Nebraska by 9. They only beat Penn State by 9. So they haven't been as dominant, surely, as Georgia has. But they're the team that a lot of us are looking at, just as a team that could at least challenge Georgia's defense a little bit more than the folks they faced so far. And then they're obviously in line to play Alabama in the SEC title game.
Where do you sit on the Cincinnati question right now? I mean, because I've watched them play several games. They're a good team. They're really good. I don't know that they can compete if they get to the playoffs. And here's a theory that not many people subscribe to, but I do. Cincinnati's problem is they should have finished Georgia off last year, and I think people would look at them differently this year on the committee.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although, I mean, everybody who watched that game knows it was a pretty even game. Now, you could say, well, Georgia had some guys who opted out or injured or whatever. And Cincinnati, Georgia still won the game. I feel for Cincinnati because they did everything that you're supposed to do. They went out and scheduled, teams on the road. One of those wins is still helping them very much at Notre Dame. Unfortunately, the other one against Indiana hasn't helped them at all because Indiana's been terrible this season. And then the other thing that, again, you just didn't expect is that the AAC is down. I mean, normally, these wins that they're getting against AAC opponents, typically those are teams that are, above 500 or, maybe in some cases ranked teams, but, they beat they beat South Florida. South Florida is 2-8 now. They beat Navy, which has been a solid program, really at times better than that under Ken Niumatalolo. They're 2-7. They beat.
I was trying to think if they played UCF this year already and beat them.
They have. I believe they have. Yeah, I think that was a few weeks ago.
And that's a team that's way down from where they've been.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean 6-4, that's not a great record for UCF, and they get SMU this week, but SMU has 2 losses, and so their league has really let them down. And Mike Oresco hates to hear that, but that's the problem is that league has been the best group of 5 conference, but this year it's the Mountain West. Mountain West is better than the American in my mind. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are 7-3 or better, whereas the American only has 3 teams that are sitting up there. Now Cincinnati will get both of those teams with SMU and Houston, but is that going to be enough with the Notre Dame win to vault them into the playoff. I think it could still be. They would certainly be helped by Oregon losing again. They'd certainly be helped by Alabama losing to Georgia. Maybe that clears a path. But yeah, it's a challenging one, because I don't think that they would beat Georgia. I don't think they would beat Ohio State. I don't think they would beat Alabama. And then some of the other contenders, are a bit of a toss-up. Oregon, Cincinnati, to me, is a toss-up game. They've already beaten Notre Dame. Would Michigan, Cincinnati probably is a toss-up. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky.
It's a long shot, but it could happen where you have a Cincinnati Notre Dame rematch in the playoffs in the first round, because Notre Dame just keeps winning. It's almost like, I don't even know if their games are on TV anymore, but I know up there it's a little bit different, but down here it's like, yeah, Notre Dame keeps winning. I don't know how they keep winning these games, and they're, but they lost the one that matters. So I don't know how it's all going to play out as we go forward.
No, I agree. I saw Notre Dame. I've kind of seen them in different iterations this year. I've seen them 3 times. I saw them against Wisconsin early on when they were still very much trying to figure out their quarterback position in a sense, and just their passing game. And then they were able to beat Wisconsin largely because of their defense. And the next week, I was at the Cincinnati game, Pat, and really, if Cincinnati finishes some drives in the third quarter, that's not a close game. And Notre Dame really looked bad against them. And then I saw them against USC, and Jack Cohn was playing better, and they started to win a little bit more. But they beat USC, they beat North Carolina. These aren't great teams that they're stacking up wins again. Even Virginia didn't have its quarterback this last week, and so they kind of won how you're supposed to. So I think honestly the best thing for Notre Dame after their recent playoff appearances is probably not to get into the playoff and to get into a solid New Year's Six game and win that, and then spin it forward to next year when they maybe have a real chance to get back into the CFP.
Adam, it's always great talking to you, man. Love your work and love your stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on the Dooley Noted podcast. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, Pat. Yeah, no, whenever you reach out, I'm happy to say yes, and great to be on with you today.
Thanks so much, Adam. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN. Great stuff from him, as always. Knew it would be, and we appreciate it. By the way, Friday, Tony Barnhart's going to join us, so that'll be a lot of fun. We were going to get him during Florida, Georgia, which would have made a lot of sense, but he had too much going on. But we'll get him, and we'll talk about what's going on here and what's going on at Georgia with him on Friday. All right, we will take a break. We got a lot of things to get to. The Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. The Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the weekend might be a little surprise for you guys. Leonardo's and Millhopper Quick Picks. We start a new segment today. Hand Law of 3 Things, and the Hesser and Kipke Monday Spreads. We got a lot to get to. So we'll take a break. We'll come back on another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Shaq Allen Mercandone Studios. Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam's Ribco to Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. to go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hey, this is Pat Dooley for the Gainesville Quarterback Club, and they are having a trial membership here at the end of the season. It's really a great deal. We've talked about them doing it at the beginning of the season, and what they're doing is they're offering the next 3 meetings for $100. And believe me, you get a full meal out of this, too, for every one of these meetings. It's great speakers. The meeting dates for this are November 9th, 16th, and 23rd as we wrap up this college football season. Anyone interested in taking advantage of this trial membership can RSVP the membership leader at bob.bagley@pauldavis.com, or you can just pay at the door.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Okay, and welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast from the Shakow and Mercadante studios, presented by the great folks at Titan MRI. These are only great folks. We only deal with great folks here. I wonder if people wonder what my sheet looks like. This is not anything scientific. It's just scribblings from an old man who turned 67 yesterday. How about that? 67 years old. It's all, I don't know whether to be happy or sad. But you know what? Who sent me a lot of people sent me really nice birthday greetings, but got one from Billy Donovan last night, and that meant a lot to me. Yeah. All right. Let us go. We've got a lot of things to get to, as you know. You listen to the show. The Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack. Alex Wesley Construction, love where you live. And, of course, these are the 12 teams I would rank in their order if there was a 12-team playoff. And there's going to be some controversy here. People are going to be mad at me. Not that anybody's going to be really mad at me. But obviously Georgia's number one. I mean, it's ridiculous. I got Ohio State too, and that was before I talked to Adam and Alabama 3. And the reason I have Ohio State ahead, and here's where I get into trouble. I got Ohio State ahead of Oregon, but I put Michigan State ahead of Michigan, even though Michigan State beat Michigan. Oregon beat Ohio State. So this is where you get into eventually the head-to-head is just part of the equation, in my opinion. And that's what the committee basically did with Michigan State, Michigan. They said it's only part of the equation. It's not the entire equation. We looked at the teams, and this is who we think are the best. This is the way I would rank them based on what I've seen. And I would have Cincinnati 4th right now. Oregon there's times when I'm just not impressed with them. But everybody but Georgia has had those moments. I think Adam's right. I think Ohio State's the one team that could give them a tussle. But, again, I talked about this on Friday. Calm down about my rankings or anybody else's rankings. There's a long way to go to the end of the football season. It's a 3-week sprint now. You got this week where there aren't a lot of great games, but as you know, there will be great games. And then you got next week, which is a big rivalry weekend, and anything could happen. And then you got the championship games for everybody but Notre Dame. I did have Michigan State ahead of Michigan. I do have Notre Dame 8th, Oklahoma State 9th, Wake Forest. Wake Forest has lost one game and I'm trying to remember, it was North Carolina, right? And I think it was a 3-point loss, right? I'm trying to remember. But they barely lost. I watched them again the other night. They look great. And Ole Miss, I know they have 2 losses, but Ole Miss is really good. They're fun to watch. And they're doing it with defense now, and that is really surprising. Now, A&M's not very good on offense, and that was part of their problem. And then, of course, I got Baylor at 12. I mean, Baylor knocked Oklahoma out. I took Oklahoma completely out of it. So I went from having Oklahoma at 2 to completely out of it. Every week I'm doing exactly what the committee is supposed to do, and I'm sure they are doing. I am looking at college football, and here are the 12 teams that I would put in order. Doesn't have to do with what you did last week or what the week before. It's what it's your body of work, and it'll all change. So that, for today, is the Alex Wesley Construction 12-pack, Love Where You Live, with Alex Wesley Construction. It is time to go to the Adams Ribco to go. Gator of the weekend. Not everybody's going to like this one, but I do. And I thought about it for a long time. And I said, well, it's got to come from basketball. It's got to come from basketball with that big win for them. And then I went, you know who it should be? It should be Mike White. Mike White is our Gator, Adams Ribco to go, Gator of the weekend. Now, obviously, to break that losing streak, which wasn't all him, Billy lost his last game against FSU as well. But to break that losing streak, to do it when you really wanted to, I mean, it was important to these guys for Keontae to win this game, and it was important to Mike White to win this game. And you saw the embrace after the game, and then you probably saw the video of them presenting him with the game ball. But look, I'm a Mike White supporter. I believe in Mike White. I think he's a really good coach. I think he has flaws like many coaches do. But I still think now, is he a great coach? We'll find out eventually. But he's our Gator of the weekend. So right there is a great honor for him. I think has he been SEC Coach of the Year? I don't know if he has, but if he hasn't, he's been the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend. That should be enough right there. Let's get to a couple of Facebook questions. One from Trey. Well, Dan Mullen. It's Dan Mullen, not Dan Mullins. I like to edit people who when they misspell coaches' names, I go, come on. You can't rip a guy if you're going to misspell his name. Well, Dan Mullen be on the next Dancing with the Stars. That's interesting. He was dancing it up, and that he could be maybe a little bit. Yeah, I could see that. You get paid really well for that, too. A lot of money. I'm not talking about you get a check. You get a lot of money. The longer you're on it, the more you get. So maybe, no, obviously that's trying to be funny, Trey, and I appreciate your sense of humor, okay? Spelling, we got to work on. David wants to know if Bama loses to the Dogs in Atlanta, are they out of the playoffs? Not necessarily. If they went out and they go to Atlanta and they lose 24-21 and they've got a 2-loss looking them right in the face, and they would have to beat out probably another 2-loss team to get in the playoffs. I don't think they're out of it. It's unlikely, but I don't think they're out of it. All right, Lid, it's time for us to get to the Monday Spreads. The Monday Spreads are brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, a law firm based in Hale Plantation, specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklawfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920. Hesser and Kipke, one of our two double sponsors. So we love that. We love people that like to sponsor numerous things. So let's go through some of these games. We always like to do the Monday Spreads. And I always include Penn State because Ken's a big Penn State guy. They are 17-point favorites at home against Rutgers. So there you go. You got that one done. But, this weekend, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a overwhelmingly great weekend. Here's a funny thing. We went to a place Saturday night with a family, a lot of family, and from Karen's family, and my daughter was there too, and nieces and nephews and stuff like that. So it was really cool. But we went there, and it was I'm not going to say where. It was a sports bar, known for its being a sports bar, okay? Just leave it at that. So I sit down and I go, okay, this is perfect. I can watch, there's 90 TVs here. I'll watch as many games as I can. They only had one game on. And then the other TVs were still on Jeopardy because they had been on CBS for the CBS game at 3:30 SEC game. And I got them to change them all. And because there were so many really good games, and they were all great. If you didn't see the end of Kansas and Texas, it was unbelievable what happened at the end of that game. If you know the Ole Miss A&M game was unbelievable. There were just a lot of really interesting games. The FSU game was unbelievable. I can't believe Miami blew that game. Although it was kind of, I was like rooting for Miami because, my feelings about FSU, which you'll find out more about next week. So I was rooting for Miami, but then when Miami lost, I went, they were getting a little full of themselves. It's okay that they lost. It's all right. But the interesting thing about FSU and is how much better they're playing. And when Jordan Travis, they're a better team. And obviously it could come down to that for Florida to get bowl eligible. And I don't know whether it's a good idea or not to be bowl eligible. I think it is important to qualify for a bowl, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, Florida is a 7.5-point favorite over Missouri at Missouri. I looked it up. Game time temperature is not going to be that bad. Now, is it going to be cold? Yes. Is it going to be really cold? No. You know the difference. And I've been up there when it's been really cold. I've been up there with snow on the ground. I don't think it's ever actually snowed when I've been there. Maybe once in Columbia. But it's not going to be that bad. It's going to be I think it's like 54 at kickoff. 54 is not that bad. It's a long sleeve T-shirt. It's all that is. So it's not going to be stupid cold. It will obviously get colder as the night goes on, but you kind of get that adrenaline going. So I don't think that that's any huge disadvantage for Florida in that game against Missouri. But they were 10-point favorites when it opened, so they bet it down. I know that. So the wise guys may know a little more than I give them credit for. Florida State is getting 2.5 at Boston College, and I'm like, do you not get cable? Do you not understand that how good FSU's been playing, how much better they've been playing? Now, I know their record's terrible, and they've got to win out. They've got to win this game. And you should be watching this game if you're a Gator fan, if you care anymore. And look, I think everybody still should care, and everybody should still support the team. I'm a big believer in that. But if you do care, you still want Florida to beat FSU next week, okay? You want them to beat Missouri, but you want them to beat FSU. You want to go to a bowl. You want to finish at 500 or better, hopefully. Hopefully they can find a way to beat Missouri this week. But if you want to watch that FSU-Boston College game, which may be at the same time, I'm not sure. I'll let you know that on Friday. Because then FSU can't get into a bowl. The best they can do is 5-7. So they lose a lot of incentive for that game. In a perfect world, Florida wins, so they become bowl eligible, and they don't feel any pressure, and they try to win for the seniors on senior day, and maybe FSU, because they're not playing for anything, they mail it in. But I will tell you, I've watched Florida play all year. I've watched Florida State play all year. Florida is mailing it in, and a lot on defense, especially, and FSU's not. They're playing at a much better level than they were playing. You remember the first game against Notre Dame, man, that was a hell of a game. Notre Dame now has a shot at the playoffs. The Jacksonville State game derailed their season in many ways, but they kept it together, and they stayed with it. And I give them credit for that. You know how much I hate to do that. Oregon is a 3-point underdog at Utah. Wait a minute. I thought Oregon's in the playoff. Wait a minute. And they're an underdog at Utah? Well, Utah's a tough place to play. That'll be a fun game to watch. No question about it. Also on the Hesser and Kipke Monday spreads, Auburn, 7-point favorite over South Carolina. It was, I think it was 10.5, but the news came out today, I guess it was today, maybe it was even late yesterday, that Bo Nix is out for the year with a broken ankle, having surgery on it. So bad news for him. So you're not going to get the good Bo or the bad Bo. You're just going to get no Bo. And the backup quarterback's the guy that was at LSU, T.J. Finley, I believe is his name. And he has played a little bit this year, but it's not. South Carolina, the way they played against Florida was a different level than they played in any game this year. I don't know if they can repeat that, but I'm sure the crowd will be up for it. They do a good job. Arkansas, which is ranked, and I don't know, I haven't even seen the AP rankings today. I'll talk about it maybe Friday. Arkansas is a 20.5-point underdog at Alabama. That's a lot of points to give a ranked team. And I like Arkansas, and I that may be lock of the week, to be honest with you, even though I don't do lock of the week because I missed the first 4 in a row, so I had to quit doing it. It's a law. And Virginia Tech is getting 7 points at Miami. It'll be interesting to see where Miami is mentally in this game because of that loss in the last minutes to FSU. So that, for today, our Hesser and Kipke Monday spreads. Always enjoy bringing them to you. We'll be back on Friday with the Hesser and Kipke games of the week. The FSU Boston College game. I think it might be a nooner too, like the Florida game. You know, it's weird because they announced the Florida FSU games at noon, and Georgia Tech at the same time. I don't know what they're thinking sometimes, and why they're doing that to people. Why they're doing it to the people that want to tailgate and want to celebrate the seniors. But, hey, it's TV's world. We're all just part of it. Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. We're going to start a new segment with Leonardo's at Millhopper. Well, Alex Jenkins was the winner of our last one. He's been trying to we've been kind of going back and forth, but I still need to get some information from him to get him his prizes. And I'm going to give you, it's kind of a freebie, but yeah, you got to think about it. New England at Atlanta Thursday night. Now, New England's playing really well and heading for the playoff. It is a noon game? Okay, great. And Atlanta just got destroyed. What was it, 48-3, I think, something like that. So it should be a freebie in the Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks, but you never know. All right, so we will that'll be it for that. All right, finally today, and we hate to put them last. We usually put them first, but I just kind of switched the order around a little bit. The Hand Law Three Things is presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. And we appreciate Chris Hand and all the great things he does. In fact, got a great birthday greeting from him. Also heard from him Saturday. Wanted to know if I was going to be the defensive coordinator this year. I could do it. I could do better. I can tell you that. All right, number one, I got this Aaron Rodgers dilemma. He was kind of my favorite player in the NFL. And it goes back to when I had him on my fantasy quarterback. Anyway, I always kind of liked this thing. And then all this stuff happened with the vaccination and not getting it. And, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but it just kind of lost my taste for Aaron Rodgers, at the cockiness of him. And and so I'm watching the game on Sunday. I'm rooting against Aaron Rodgers. I don't think I've ever done that before. So what does he do? Of course, wins a game, 17-0. And the guy I'm rooting for gets no points. So that wasn't good. I don't know what to do with Aaron Rodgers. Number two, I did get to watch some golf, which I have not watched in a while, really, because there hadn't been any reason to watch. But Mickelson was in contention, so I watched it, and he won. And then they gave all the stuff to Bernard Langer because he was the overall winner of the whole, Charles Schwab Cup or whatever. Mickelson won the tournament, though, and it was fun to watch. So I appreciate having golf because you need that second TV going. So that was good. And especially after the high I was on from Florida basketball, I needed something good to watch. So appreciate Philly Mick. He's played in 6 Champions Tour events, won 4 of them. Pretty good. He may just start devoting himself to that and winning them all. And finally, We talked about Florida beating FSU in basketball. They also beat them in softball, even though the games don't count. They were just fall scrimmages. But they played this weird kind of 10-inning game, and Florida beat them 17-4. Look, we won't even get into this until we get well into next year, but it appears on the surface like they have a bunch of really good young players and a couple of grad transfers and a bunch of people. They might be really good this year. Of course, they're good almost every year. I mean, there have been a couple of blips, but they're really good almost every year. I think they may be. I want to get with Tim and kind of make sure that this is because FSU threw their scrubs, out there or something like that. But they've been very impressive in this fall scrimmages, which used to not be publicized if you even played them. I don't even know if they played them because nobody publicized them. All right, we appreciate Hand Law for the Hand Law 3 things. I think we got through everything, didn't we? Thanks so much to everybody, especially Adam Rittenberg. Again, Tony Barnhart on Friday. We'll have him. And until this, I think it's it. Another Dooley Noted Podcast. From the Shack Al Mercandani Studios, I bid you farewell.